This Parsha podcast is dedicated in loving memory and Lilu Nishmas Moshe ben David Shalom, our friend Moshe Peter Loth, who passed away a few weeks ago. May his soul be elevated in heaven. Depending on where you are located on the globe, this is the last Parsha podcast to be released in 2025. Next Parsha podcast, please God, with the help of the Almighty, we will release it on Wednesday nights. That's New Year's Eve, or Thursday morning, New Year's Day. So depending where on the globe you are, this might be the last one of 2025, the new one that's released. So if you were on the globe, or maybe, just maybe, you're above the globe, because I've heard rumors, verified rumors with lots of credibility, that we have a listener or two on the International Space Station. My gosh, what else is there to do up there? So depending on where you are, this may be the last episode that we have of 2025, or maybe we'll sneak in one before the new year. It's been a wonderful year of Torah study together. From my recollection, I don't think we missed an episode the whole year, which is an amazing accomplishment. So thank you. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful journey. Thank God it's been a wonderful week here in Houston, Texas. Of course, we just finished the festival of Hanukkah, and we had a special guest that joined us for Shabbos, my friend Mike Shambon. What a delight. He had such a wonderful time visiting the Wolbys for the Shabbos of Hanukkah. He's already planning his next trip. And we're really fortunate that we're able to host people. It's been years since we had the ability, the capacity, and he came and he wants to come back. Amazing. So that was one highlight, but maybe the biggest highlight, I don't know, it's hard to measure. We had like the best Wolby family Hanukkah party in history. So yes, of course, we played the standard games. For the second year in a row, we played the Wolby family bingo game. You know how to play Wolby bingo. You got to make a 5x5 grid, and you got to write in all the Wolby relatives, and then the names are all placed in a cup. Of course, I didn't win that. We did the Wolby family gift exchange. Everyone placed a gift or a favor of sorts. I'll give you a massage for 5 minutes. I'll do an errand for you. Everyone puts it in a bucket, and everyone gets to pick one out. I won my son Yoshua's gift. You know, he just got a license. So he said, he wrote down, I'm willing to take you to buy slushies. He assumed one of the kids would win it, and that would be a great prize. Doesn't excite me quite as much as it used to in the past. But I told him, I said, Yeshua, I'm still taking you up on that offer. I want that slushie. And then we did something new this year. We made it was a bit of a blunder, I have to say. We made the place cards, but they were scratch off, like lottery scratch off tickets. You know, Hanukkah has a long history of being associated with gambling. You spin the dreidel, and if you get a gimel, then you win the pot. I remember even as a young child, I was shocked that the headmaster in our yeshiva, he tolerated the kids playing dreidel for cash. It's Hanukkah. It's a long tradition. So we bought them lottery tickets, scratch offs. A big mistake. Don't do it. Of course, the kids win. You always win the first time, right? You always win the first time. That's how they get you. And afterwards, we got to go to the gas station to cash it out. We may have done something wrong. This is exactly how you breed a gambler. It was a mistake. But of course, the highlight, as it always is, was a new and improved game of Candy Bomb. You know the game Candy Bomb, right? You know the game? Candy Bomb? Of course you don't know the game Candy Bomb because it's a Wolby family Hanukkah party special. I understand that the game was invented by my father, but of course he invented the game and I gave it the name. Title's my name, Candy Bomb. And I also refined and expanded the rules. So here's the game. On the table, you have different jars, like 10 or 15 jars of different types of candy. Now, if you're a kid, you may have forgotten. If you're an adult, you may have forgotten what it's like. When kids with candy, they go nuts. They see the candy, they're drawn. They have an irresistible drive to the candies, but they can't touch it. Oh no, we got to play Wolby family Candy Bomb. Their eyes are like popping with eagerness. You can't touch the candy until it's your turn. How does it work? The contestant goes out of the room, and the people around the table, they select which candy will be the bomb, candy bomb. And once they agree upon the bomb, they call in the contestant. They call him in, and they start singing Hanukkah songs. And he has a bag, like a little Ziploc bag, and they start to select all the candies. And everyone's singing the Hanukkah songs, and they're picking this candy, that candy, all the different dishes. And if they touch the bomb, it explodes, and the song stops, and everyone says, "Brah!" And their turn is over. And whatever candies they have in their bag is theirs to keep. Whatever the candies they didn't get, sorry, you can't get it. You can't get it. Now, I added 2 new rules this year. I love these new rules. We'll have to see if it sticks for next year's candy bomb game. If you hit the candy bomb on your first selection, then not only do you not get eliminated, you get all the candies. That was my idea, my new idea. If you like that rule, it's a good rule. Because it's always like depressing. I was always bad at this game because they knew exactly which candy I would want. And they say, okay, we're going to pick this one for Yaakov. We're going to pick it for him. So now there's a way to circumvent that. There's a lot of mind games going on over here. A lot of mind games. If you pick the candy bomb on your first turn, you get all the candies. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 that I added is there's a 60-second timer. Because I remember these Wallabies, they would be like agonizing, trying to figure out exactly which one's the bomb. We don't have time for that. We got to sing the songs, select the candies until you hit the bomb. It's a Wallaby family Hanukkah party special. Maybe you should try it out yourself. What an amazing way to celebrate. What a fantastic week. It was a wonderful Hanukkah. But of course, now it's time for the Parsha podcast. And it's Parshas Vayigash. So let's begin. Parshas Vayigash, it's a bit of a bittersweet Parsha. On one hand, there's a lot of happiness in it, a lot of comfort, a lot of joy. This is the end of the saga of Joseph. Joseph is reunited with his brothers. Jacob is informed Joseph is alive. And his spirit is given life. But on the other hand, there's a poignant note of sadness in this Parsha. Because Jacob and all of his descendants, they come to join Joseph. We'll wait out the famine over here where there's food, where there's abundance, where there's all the provisions. Joseph will be our benefactor. And that's wonderful. He's a king in Egypt, after all. He's going to sustain them for the duration of the famine. But once they descend to Egypt, it's a hard place to get out of, to extricate yourself from. We have this wonderful, sweet, emotional, moving family reunion. But there's the story of the nation descending to Egypt, where they will be for centuries. Once they get there, they're there till the Exodus. And that's going to happen 210 years later. That's a long time. 210 years ago, there was like no electricity and no running water. You had to go to the back and with the shovel. And James Madison was president. Or maybe James Monroe. One of the Jameses. One of the Jameses was president. And he wore an ascot. It's a long time ago. That's how long the Jews will have to be in Egypt. Jacob and his descendants, they're going to the place where they're going to be in exile. And eventually they'll be enslaved and oppressed and tormented and abused and marginalized. But of course, in Egypt, that's where they will become a great nation as well. Indeed, as we shall see, it's only possible for them to flower, to flourish, to blossom into the great nation, the nation capable of standing at the foot of the mountain and saying, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. That can only happen once they go through the crucible that is Egypt. Our Parsha is a pivotal one in the storyline of our people. Our nation is at a critical juncture. Jacob and co. are descending to Egypt, and they're going to fulfill the promise, the prophecy given to Abraham, chapter 15 of Genesis, Yodoa Teda. This is by the covenant between the parts. Your descendants will be enslaved and oppressed and tormented for 400 years. and only then they will leave with great wealth. That happens now in Parshas Vayigash. Let's go backstage. We pick up right in the middle of a story. Last week, Benjamin was found red-handed. He has Joseph's goblet. He's arrested. The whole family, the whole group, the caravan turns around, goes back to Egypt, goes back before Joseph. And now Judah, who was Benjamin's guarantor, he promised Jacob, I'll bring him back intact. He's pleading with Joseph to release Benjamin. Let Benjamin go, and I will take his stead. You recall, Jacob did not want to send Benjamin. And Reuven tried to persuade him. Jacob said no. And the famine got so severe, and they really needed to replenish their food stock. And only then did Jacob relent and accede to allow Benjamin to go. But only once Judah promised to watch him. And Judah tells Joseph the whole story. He recounts the whole story from beginning to end. And he tells him, Jacob and Benjamin, they're interconnected soul to soul. Anything bad happens to Benjamin, Jacob will die in anguish. He's the last remaining child of Rachel. Take me instead. Enslave me, imprison me, incarcerate me, punish me. But please let Benjamin go home. The Midrash tells us that Judah was telling Joseph, it's a better bargain to keep me. I'm stronger than Benjamin. I'm more clever than Benjamin. I'm sharper than him. I'll make a better servant, a better soldier, a better slave. Whatever you intend to do to Benjamin, just do it to me instead. You'll be better off. Judah approaches Joseph. Vayigash. And Judah approached Joseph. And he starts his plea. He starts recounting the whole backstory and making this pitch, this entreatment to Joseph to release Benjamin. And the Midrash tells us, very interesting, the word Vayigash, the eponymous word of our Parsha, it's used in 3 different contexts. That term is used to approach in the context of war, to approach an enemy. It's used in a different context, to approach in a context of appeasement, and it's also used in the context of approaching God in prayer. The verse says, Vayigash elav Yehuda. And Judah approached him. Does him have a capitalized H or a lowercase h? It's not clear. It doesn't say in the verse. We assume he's talking to Joseph. But the Midrash tells us, a third opinion in the Midrash, he's approaching God. This is a form of prayer. Different opinions what's happening over here. Is he approaching Joseph threateningly? Let's go to war over this. Is he approaching Joseph with appeasement? Or is this perhaps a form of prayer? He's approaching God in prayer. And the Hasidic masters, they tell us, it's very interesting. Judah is one of the sons of Jacob and is one of the founders of the tribes of Israel. But our nation, we're all called Jews after Judah. We're not called Josephs or Shimons or Reuven's. We're called Jews. Yehuda, Yehudim. Why are we called Jews after Judah? And they tell us that the word Judah, the word Yehuda, means to recognize the truth of something, to appreciate and recognize the truth of something. And this is a perfect picture. What Judah's doing over here, it's a perfect picture of what our nation has been trained to do. Judah's approaching. Who's he approaching? He's approaching God, tells us the Midrash. The Jewish people. That's our nature. When we're in a bind, we approach God. And Judah means to just recognize and accept the veracity of something to accept God and to submit yourself to Him, to recognize He's the only power. Everything else has only relative existence. Recognize that everything you have, every small thing, every bit thing, it all comes from Him. With that recognition, you approach. In any time of pain, in any situation of darkness, of uncertainty, of confusion, we act like Judah. We approach God. And we acknowledge that everything is His. Everything that we have is from Him. All life and vitality is only on loan from God. Judah is the one who self-abnegates before God. He approaches in prayer. And that's why we're called Jews, Judahs. Because this is a lesson that we know innately. Our Parsha tells a story of a nation descending into exile. And yes, it's happy. Joseph's alive, amazing. But this is the actual beginning of the whole nation making its way into exile. We're going into a very dark place. And of course, at the time, it's hard to recognize in the jubilation, Joseph is alive, and Jacob's spirit comes back alive. And we have a brother who's a king, we can live in luxury, and we can avoid the famine. You zoom out. This is the nation's descent into exile. And we start off, the first word, Vayigash, says the Midrash, it's prayer. He's approaching God. And we're called Jews, because Judah is our model. He's the paradigmatic Jew. He approached God in prayer. And that's a lesson for all of us. It's a lesson in Egypt, and it's a lesson for all time. What to do when you are in an impossible bind. Judah approached God in prayer. He acknowledged that it's all in the hands of God. We too are in the hands of God. And that could be quite a comforting realization during dark times. Now, after Judah's very lengthy and passionate speech, Joseph is ready to reveal himself to his brothers. First, he clears out the room. Joseph does not want all the Egyptians who are present to witness the shame that will surely befall the brothers when Joseph does the big reveal. The room's empty. Joseph drops the bomb. Chapter 45, verse 3. Vayomer Yosef, Joseph said at Elachav to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? And the brothers were dumbstruck. They couldn't speak. They couldn't respond. And Joseph continues. Approach me. I'm Joseph. I'm your brother. I'm the one that you sold to Egypt. That's, of course, the elephant in the room, right? Joseph comforts his brothers. Don't be upset. Don't be agitated. Don't fret over the fact that you sold me here. God sent me here. God sent me here to provide for you. The famine is only 2 years old. There are 5 more years to go. Vayashlecheni Elokim, God sent me here to make sure that there's survival, that there's salvation, that there's life. Joseph is doing something remarkable over here. He's acquitting his brothers. He's exculpating his brothers. You did not send me here. God sent me. The decision to send me to Egypt was outside of the bounds of your free will. God sent me. Joseph repeats this again and again. He made me a master over Pharaoh, a ruler in the entire land. Now go and rush and ascend to my father and tell him, Ko amar b'cha Yosef, so says your son Joseph. God has made me a master over all of Egypt. Redailai, descend to me. Do not wait. I will give you the land of Goshen. You'll be close to me. You and your sons and your grandsons and your flock and your livestock and all that you own. I will sustain you all because there are still 5 more years of famine. Again and again and again and again, Joseph comforts his brothers. You did nothing. You didn't even act. It was all the handiwork of God. The brothers haven't said a single word yet. They're still dumbstruck. And this is a fascinating portrait into the future judgment and reckoning the Midrash tells us. Joseph said a few words. I am Joseph. Is Jacob, our father, still alive? In that one single sentence, everything falls into place. Those dreams of the silly, childish, infantile, megalomaniacal teenager. Are you going to rule over us? Are we going to bow before you? Are you going to be a king? It's all true. We really did bow before him. We weren't justified in our hatred towards him. And now he has all the cards. Joseph persists in trying to comfort and mollify and assuage his brothers. And he tells them, in my eyes, you are no different than Benjamin. Benjamin, of course, did nothing wrong to Joseph. He wasn't even present when Joseph was sold. In my eyes, says Joseph, you are the same. Go tell Jacob about everything that you saw over here and rush and bring him down. Joseph then cries. He falls on the neck of Benjamin. He weeps. Benjamin falls on his neck and he weeps. He kisses all his brothers. He weeps upon them. And finally, the brothers open up and they converse with him. Happy reunion indeed. Pharaoh finds out about this news and he tells him to load up the animals, go to Canaan, bring the wagons for your children, transport your family back here. And indeed, the brothers take the wagons and the provisions. The verse tells us that Joseph gave a change of clothing to each of his brothers, and to Benjamin he gave 300 silver coins and 5 changes of clothing. Okay. And to his father, the verse tells us, he sent 10 male donkeys loaded with the great delicacies of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys laden with grain, with bread, and with food for the journey. Now, what's the significance of that? Why 10? And why donkeys? So there's a fascinating comment in the Maharal. Okay, we read these verses, and we wouldn't even notice the significance of that. It's like, okay, he's sending wagons, and there's food, there's provisions, and there's the brothers, and they're going to Jacob, and there's the Pharaoh gets involved, and he provides the wagons. And Joseph sends 10 donkeys, 10 female, 10 male, each one of them laden with something else. What's the deeper message? So the Maharal says something really beautiful. Jacob's going to find some absolutely life-changing news. They're going to come to him and say, Joseph, remember Joseph? The one that you've been mourning for 22 years? You've been plunged into depression for 22 years? You've been inconsolable for 22 years? He's actually alive. Not just alive, he's the king that everyone's going to procure food from in Egypt. That's actually Joseph. You remember we brought you his tunic? It was all bloody, and you thought, or you suspected, or you said that a wild animal mauled him? He's alive and well. In Egypt, he's a king. Now, Jacob, he sent Joseph to go inspect on the brothers, a wellness call. 22 years later, he finds out that Joseph somehow made it to Egypt. What happened in between? Jacob would surely have the suspicion that maybe there was some inappropriate behavior here on the part of the brothers. Maybe they did something dastardly, which they sort of did. So Joseph sends a message. 10 donkeys. A donkey does not know if it's carrying diamonds or gravel. It's unaware of what it's doing. The act of a donkey is simply the act of the person in charge, the one in charge of the donkey. I have 10 brothers who did something unconscionable to me, but they were effectively 10 donkeys. They had no idea what they were doing. And they're not guilty of any crime. They were simply implements in the hands of the master. They were tools in the hands of God. The brothers come to Jacob, and his heart doesn't accept it. He doesn't believe the news. The Midrash tells us that Jacob was led to believe that Joseph was dead. They showed him the tunic dunked in blood. And now the same people who brought me that bloody tunic are telling me that Joseph is alive. And those two statements they're not compatible. In the words of the Midrash, a liar is not believed even when they're telling the truth. The brothers misled Jacob once. Now they're telling him the truth, but he's resisting believing it. They are the boys who cried wolf. He sees the wagons, and he remembers a conversation that him and Joseph had, and he believes it, and his spirit came back alive. Chapter 46 details Jacob's descent to Egypt. Vayisa Yisrael, he traveled with all that belongs to him. He's in Hebron, he's going to Beersheba. And he has a stop in Beersheba. And he brings sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. Why did Jacob not go immediately down to Egypt? It's interesting. Joseph multiple times tells the brothers to rush, to hasten, to hurry to bring Jacob. And Jacob, he's a little bit more relaxed and slow. He makes a stop in Beersheba. According to one of the sources, he actually made a 3-day feast in Canaan with all those delicacies and foodstuffs that came on those donkeys. But now he stops in Beersheba and he makes sacrifices to God, the God of his father Isaac. Why did he stop in Beersheba? So there's an amazing idea. It's an unbelievable insight. Very profound in the Midrash. There was something else that happened in Beersheba. Well, we may have forgotten this. Of course, the Midrash never forgets these things. Abraham planted a tree, an eshel, a tree. Abraham planted trees in Beersheba. He planted an orchard. That, says the Midrash, included cedar trees. Jacob went to harvest those trees. Now, why would Jacob harvest the trees of Abraham? And why is it important before you get down to Egypt to stop to collect the wood? Pharaoh actually said to the brothers, tell Jacob, don't worry about all your little stuff. Just come here. We have plenty of stuff. You won't miss anything. You know, when you pack, you got to get all your stuff. Make sure you don't miss anything. Coming to Egypt, everything is yours. Everything is available to you. Jacob stops to pick up that wood planted by Abraham. Says the Midrash, that wood would serve a very important purpose in the future. 210 years hence, the nation will have the Exodus. And a few months after the Exodus, they will begin a project. Which project? The project of building the tabernacle. And they will need a lot of wood, the wooden beams to build the tabernacle. And they'll need a very long pole, a pole to snake through the middle of the beams, the Bria Hatichon. It's a 32 cubit long pole. How do you find a 32 cubit long pole? It's only if you plan ahead. Jacob harvested the wood because it's going to be needed for the tabernacle that will happen after the Exodus, 210 years in the future. It's an amazing insight. First of all, that these beams originate with Abraham. Abraham planted the actual trees that will be used to make the wood, to source the wood for the tabernacle. That's fascinating. But Jacob has the presence of mind to know it's appropriate to collect those planks of wood before going down to Egypt. Why? Because these beams that symbolize A, the glorious past, and B, the glorious future, that must be present with the nation for the duration of their enslavement. They are indeed going into a very dark place. They're going to become entangled in Egypt, and they're going to have a very hard time extricating themselves from it. But one thing will be an ever-present artifact that will accompany them for 210 years. These planks of wood. And that will provide a source of comfort and continuity for the nation. In Beersheba, Jacob also offers sacrifices. So there's a lot of commentary. If you read the verse, this is 46:1. Vayizbach zvachim, and he sacrificed sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. To the God of his father, Isaac. And all the commentators are trying to figure out, all the sources are trying to figure out, why not to the God of his grandfather, Abraham? Why is he mentioning the name of his father? Of course, God is the God of both his father and his grandfather, but there's an emphasis here to the God of his father, Isaac. So Rashi tells us that, well, a person is obligated to honor the father more than honoring the grandfather, and therefore Jacob has to honor his father more than he has to honor his grandfather, Abraham. I saw one very interesting idea in the Midrash. It's, in my opinion, very fascinating, and it also exposes us to some of the deeper ideas in the bat stage. Jacob is about to get a phenomenal blessing in Beersheba on his way down to Egypt. God's going to appear to him in a vision of the night and is going to say to him, Jacob, Jacob, Yaakov, Yaakov. In the Torah, there's only two people that have that, a prophecy where they're called out twice. We rephrase that. Three people. Abraham, Jacob, and Moshe. And God's going to tell him, I am the God of your father. Don't be fearful. Don't be fearful of going down to Egypt. I'll make you into a great nation over there. I will descend with you. I'll be with you in your difficult times, and I will ascend with you. It's a beautiful blessing. It's a beautiful prophecy. How did Jacob merit this prophecy? Says the Midrash. Jacob was blessed by Isaac. And because Jacob was blessed by Isaac, that's why he received this prophecy. Moreover, the Midrash tells us, if you look at the whole story of Jacob and his father Isaac, Jacob was blessed 5 times by Isaac. And you count all the prophecies that Jacob had in the Torah, he had 5 prophecies. Jacob's 5 prophecies corresponded to Jacob's 5 blessings that he received from Isaac. In 27:23, 27:28, 27:33, 28:1, and 28:3. These are the 5 places where Jacob is blessed by Isaac. And corresponding to that, God appeared to him 5 times. Of course, the dream with the ladder, with the angels going up and down. In the house of Laban, God told him to go back to the land of Canaan. After the event of Shechem, God appeared to Jacob and told him to go to Beit El. In Genesis 35:9, that's the 4th time, and over here is the 5th time. Why did Jacob merit 5 prophecies? That's only in the merit of the 5 blessings that he received from Isaac. I love this idea because it shows us the power of Isaac's blessings. You recall, it was like a matter of life and death for Jacob, for Esau to get the blessing of Isaac. One blessing earns you the right to prophecy. And therefore, because Jacob understood that the only reason why he merited the prophecy was in the merit of Isaac, he said he offered sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. Now, the verse tells us that God appeared to Jacob, to Israel, Bimaros halayla, in a vision of the night. Abraham had prophecy. Isaac had prophecy. Only Jacob had prophecy at night. And Jacob actually had it twice. So we have this prophecy and the aforementioned prophecy at the beginning of Parshas Vayigash, the dream with the ladder with the angels going up and down. That's a dream at night. That's a prophecy at night. Jacob, his prophecy comes at night. And there's a deep message behind that. Jacob is about to depart from the Holy Land, and he's going to a foreign place, to a scary place, to a dark place. And at night, in the darkness, in the dread of night, there is revelation. In the darkness, in the opacity, in the confusion of nighttime, in the depth of darkness, of exile, Jacob is comforted. You will still have revelation. You will still have the divine presence. We know that the three daily prayers correspond to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's prayer is at night. At night, in the darkness, you will have a connection with God, a connection that will never be severed, that will never be weakened. There's a very famous verse in Psalms 20, a very powerful verse. Ya'ancha Hashem yom tzara. God will answer you in a difficult day, in a day of suffering. Yisagevcha Hashem Elokei Yaakov. God will protect you, the God of Jacob. In a time of difficulty, in a time of challenge, in a time of despair, the God of Jacob will protect you. Of course, it's the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but Jacob represents this difficult situation of going down to exile, of going into darkness. And Jacob is comforted. At night, you'll still have revelation. And God tells him, don't be fearful. Don't be fearful of descending to Egypt. Al tira, don't be scared. Meridam Mitzrayim, to go down to Egypt. For I will make you a great nation over there. In Egypt, that's where Jacob's family will be transformed into a great nation. Now, there's a very weighty implication over here. God tells Jacob, don't be fearful of going down to Egypt, because I will make you into a great nation there. Meaning, only there, only in Egypt, can you become a great nation. The nation is going to be sent to a very suboptimal place. But God's telling Jacob, before he even goes there, before he arrives at the gates of Egypt, God tells him, only here, only in Egypt, only there, meaning that's the only circumstance, that's the only situation in which you can become a great nation. In Canaan, things were good. And when things are good, there's a risk. There's a risk of them losing their special character. This is a comment that the Sforno makes. You're now in Canaan. And in Canaan, you're tolerated. You're even celebrated. You recall that Abraham was a great hero in Canaan. Isaac was a very wealthy person. These are celebrities. And in such a situation, there's a risk of assimilation, of losing your character. The nation, what would happen? That they'd lose who they are and lose their the distinct nature. They'll assimilate, they'll intermarry amongst the Canaanites. In Egypt, the people were pariahs. When Joseph organized the big bash with his brothers, last his Parsha, the Egyptians would not sit next to the Hebrews. They wouldn't eat bread with them. Why? Because they were disgusted by the Hebrews. So it's not pleasant to be disgusted by your neighbors, but in a weird way, that creates the optimal condition for growth, for flourishing. Only in Egypt will we become a great nation. We see a theme again and again here in the Parsha. Joseph went down to Egypt. In the eyes of everyone, it's a terrible crime against Joseph. What a terrible future awaits him. Nothing positive could come out of this terrible experience, this dark experience. But now we see the bigger picture. In the eyes of Joseph, the brothers were not guilty. It was really all the handiwork of God. Jacob descends to Egypt. And God tells him, it's dark, but I'll be with you. It's dark, but only in that dark place will you become a great nation. Jacob indeed descends to Egypt, together with his 70 descendants that are enumerated. And Jacob and Joseph reunite, and Joseph introduces his brothers to Pharaoh, and Joseph introduces Jacob to Pharaoh, and they have this very interesting conversation. How old are you? Oh, wrinkly old man. Pharaoh seems to have a bit of an obsession with age and birthdays. He made a birthday party, you recall. That's when he decided the fate of the butler and the baker. And now he's asking Jacob about his age. But age is just a social construct. It's just a number. 60 is the new 40. Not for Pharaoh. He wants to know. Jacob tells him, I'm 130, buddy. No young spring chicken. The family settles in Goshen, and the Parsha ends with an exploration of the modus operandi of Joseph. He gave the Egyptians food for money, then food for animals, and finally food for land. The land was acquired all by Pharaoh. And to instill the fact that they no longer own their land, he undertook the grand resettlement project, moved people from city to city so that they relinquish their claim to the land. But also, our sages tell us, so that his brothers won't be the only outsiders. They won't be the only foreigners. Everyone is an immigrant. Everyone recently moved. And it tells us he created a sharecropper agreement. 20% of the yield will go to Pharaoh, and the rest will be kept by the tenant farmer. And he enshrined in the laws of Egypt that the land of the clergymen cannot be touched. And this will be very important later on. The Levites, the clergymen of our people, they won't be bothered or molested during the enslavement of Egypt. And with the clergymen of our people spared, the nation was able to have a bit of a foundation of sanity and spiritual and physical health upon which to build the Exodus. I want to end off with, I think, an amazing idea. Joseph reveals himself to his brother, the big reveal. I'm Joseph, your long lost brother. And the brothers are dumbstruck, are dumbfounded, are tongue-tied. And he appeases them, and he comforts them, and he mollifies them. And then Joseph and Benjamin, they fall on each other's neck and they weep. And every time we find emotion in the Torah, it's got to be something which is more than just raw emotion. I always look at Rashi. Rashi always tells us what the deeper meaning behind the emotion is. Rashi says something which is so fascinating and so unexpected. These are two brothers who haven't seen each other for 22 years. It made sense that they're emotional. Rashi says, no, that's not what they're crying about. Joseph is falling upon the neck of Benjamin, and he's crying because in Benjamin's ancestral portion in the land of Israel, hundreds of years in the future, will be built the temple on Temple Mount, and the temple will be destroyed. The first temple and the second temple will be destroyed. And therefore, Joseph is crying now over the destruction of the temples. And Benjamin is crying on the neck of Joseph because in Joseph's ancestral portion will be built many, many hundreds of years in the future, the tabernacle at Shiloh. And that too will be destroyed. And therefore, Benjamin is crying on the neck of Joseph. Now, on a basic level, we've spoken about this in the past, that the neck is the neck's like the bridge. It connects the head and the body, the spiritual and the physical, the intellectual and the implementational. It's the bridge between the holy and the mundane, the intellect and the animalistic instinct. And that's symbolic of the temple, because the temple connects heaven and earth. But the larger question is, why are they crying about this now? Why now specifically, in this juncture of the Torah, in this reunion of Joseph and Benjamin? Why is the appropriate thing to mourn and to cry and to weep over the destruction of the temple, Temple 1, Temple 2, and the tabernacle that will happen many hundred years in the future? Now, in the past, we talked about how maybe this is an appropriate time to cry over the temple and its destruction, because the temples were destroyed over hatred of brothers to each other, and now there's an outpouring of brotherly love, and Joseph and Benjamin are mourning the fact that these feelings of brotherly love will not be continued in perpetuity. But there's another idea. What's the deeper meaning of the brothers mourning the temple? And right now, when the nation is having their first foray into exile, the nation will be in Egypt, in exile, for hundreds of years. The temple, that signifies the nation not being in exile. And thus, the destruction of the temple is the equivalent of the entrance into exile. And the truth is that the history of our people, if you look back at, depends when you start counting, right? Let's say you count from the Exodus, it's 3,300 years. How many of those years have been exile years versus non-exile years? It turns out that non-exile years, that's the aberration. That's the exception. The rule has been exile. If you go back further, you start from, let's say, the covenant between the parts. So you have 400 years on top of the 3,336 or so years. 3,700 years and 800 years of that's been non-exile. The history of our people is mostly about exile. We had the temple for 830 years, and the rest of the time we were in one degree of exile or another. 80% or so of our history is exile. Why? Why did the Almighty place us in exile for so long? It must be that there are opportunities that are unique to exile and are not available when things are going swimmingly. It must be that the Almighty positions us in suboptimal circumstances because that can unlock higher levels of elevation. The brothers, in the nation's first foray into exile, they're lamenting the fact that exile is such a dominant part of our history. It's so unfortunate that we have to go down to Egypt. It's unfortunate that there's something that we can accomplish over here in Egypt that we cannot accomplish when things are going well. God tells Jacob, don't worry about going down to Egypt. It's awful. What do you mean, don't worry? It's the worst thing in the world. No, there you become a great nation. There and not here, not in Canaan. That's a lamentable fact, that we unlock levels of greatness when things are not ideal. When you go down to Egypt, when you leave Jerusalem. You leave Jerusalem to go to Egypt. You leave Jerusalem because the temple's destroyed. You lose the tabernacle. It's all for our benefit. But it's very unpleasant. Jacob doesn't want to go down to Egypt. God says to him, don't be scared. He doesn't want to be subjected to the very unpleasant experience awaiting him there. God says, you have to go. Don't worry about it. You have to go. Because there and there alone, you'll become a great nation. The opportunities that the suboptimal conditions unlock are just not present elsewhere. And that's why 80% of our history has been exile. Because that is the optimal conditions, obviously, for us to really flower and blossom. And the truth is, this goes even further. This is the story of humanity. The Midrash tells us that our soul does not want to be here. And the soul, being born, being placed into a physical body, that's equivalent to being put into solitary confinement, incarceration. And the soul resists. It's kicking and screaming. It doesn't want to come here. What's wrong with staying in heaven? It's way better. So why did God, all loving, all good, why does he bring us here? Why does he send our soul into exile? It's obviously for our benefit, even though it's so hard for us to appreciate that. Jacob is not thrilled to go down to Egypt. Joseph is not thrilled to go down to Egypt. None of us are thrilled leaving Jerusalem in chains. None of us are thrilled witnessing the downfall of the temple. And you look at our history, it's just a long series of exile to exile, with brief little lapses in that storyline. Joseph, I'm making you a king, and you have no idea. In your eyes, you're being put in chains. Jacob, I'm making you into a great nation, and you have no idea. You don't want to do it. The soul, I'm giving an opportunity to become a wellspring, not just a cistern. That's what the Zohar says. The soul in heaven, it's a cistern. It comes here, it should become a wellspring. Only in exile. Exile affords opportunities. Jacob is comforted, and we're comforted. There will be a vision in the night. There'll be a spark in the night. We're not alone. God is with us in our suffering. I'm with you in your suffering. We don't want to suffer. We don't want exile. But the Almighty knows what's best for us. And whenever we find ourselves in a situation that's exile-like, that's unfortunate, that's suboptimal, that's not ideal, we have to realize that the Almighty placed us there because he wants us to uncover within ourselves, to unlock within ourselves some element of greatness that would not be otherwise achievable. May we all be so fortunate as to experience the light amidst the darkness. We are still hoping to get out of exile. It's amazing. We're in exile. We want to go. We want to go out, even though God wants us here. We don't know why. We hope to witness the redemption. May happen very speedily in our days. This may have been the last Parsha podcast, new edition of 2025. It depends. Where are you in the world or above the world? We don't know, but we want to thank all of y'all. I want to thank all of y'all for joining us on this journey. It's delightful to study the Parsha with y'all each week from the Torch Center in Houston, Texas. And we hope and we pray that the Almighty will give us success going forward to be able to not only record next week Parshas Vayigash, but please God continue into the book of Exodus, the book of Shmos, and throughout 2026 with the help of the Almighty. From the Torch Center in Houston, Texas, my name is Yaakov Walby. My email address is, should you choose to send me an email, RABBI, Rabbi, Walby, WOLB, @gmail.com. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A fantastic and splendid and meaningful and uplifting Shabbos upcoming. We're very fortunate because my parents are coming to visit us this Shabbos. So we're all excited. Our grandparents, the kids' grandparents are going to come. Please, God, we'll have a wonderful time. And please, God, we'll have the great merit of once again recording a Parsha podcast next week in good health and in good spirits. And again, the email address is rabbiwalby@gmail.com.